Hello and welcome to these videos on Classroom.Cloud for teachers and educators. Classroom Cloud is our easy breezy, low cost, cloud-based classroom management, teaching and online safety platform for schools, brought to you from the award-winning NetSupport. So in this first video, I'm going to just sort of generally run through this view that you can see right now. This is our class view. You can see my class is already there. They're working on a project, doing some independent learning and some research around the solar system. We can see on the screen that Andy, for example, over here is on a NASA website. I've got Gavin over here using Quizlet to test his knowledge on a solar system. We've got Ryan already just here starting to work on his report. We've got Tony watching a YouTube video down here from NASA, I believe. We've got someone else doing some work over here as well. So we can see at a glance what our learners are doing in the classroom, really easily, super simple. As you can see on the left hand side, we've got a variety of views. We've got the thumbnail view that we're looking at right now. We've got another view called app monitoring, and if we go into there, we can see the apps that our learners are using at this point in time. I can go in and see what they're doing on the web as well, so I can see exactly what sites the students are working on and all of those things. I can use later on, and I'll be showing you how to use more of this part of our product, Classroom.Cloud, but in this section we can survey our students and get a feel for their learning and how they're getting on within the class. And if students need help, and this is so important when we're using a platform, classroom management, such as Classroom.Cloud, because on this platform, our learners might not all be in the same place. It's a great solution for supporting hybrid learning. So if you've got some learners in the room with you, fantastic. But what if they're working at home? And there's lots of features and functionality inside Classroom.Cloud to support and help with that as well. So we can do that, and we can contact all of our learners through our chat feature here. And again, I'll demonstrate how to use chat later on. And down the bottom here as well, we've got device control. So you can choose to allow a variety of things within your class. You can allow or disallow your learners to use USB sticks. You can allow them or disallow them to have their webcams and to be using audio as well. I'll be showing you later on again inside these videos how we can allow and restrict each of those, and you can do that on a granular level actually. You can allow it for some and disallow for some others, and that gives you the flexibility to choose what's right for you in your classroom with your learners in your particular context. Now obviously this sidebar over here takes up some of your visual real estate. So if you want to, very simply, you can just sort of collapse that sidebar by clicking on this icon just here at the top. Click on here, and that reduces that down. And once you become familiar with the platform, you may want to keep it like this all the time to give you that extra little bit of visual real estate, because you'll recognise what each of these icons are, so you'll know where to go. So for example, you'll know this is the chat. If you wanted to go into chat and talk to one of your learners for whatever reason, you can very simply just click onto that and it will load up the chat options like so. There you go, a general overview of the interface here in Classroom.Cloud. One of my favourite features about Classroom.Cloud is its ability to draw in straight away the attention of your learners wherever they are. Now, Classroom.Cloud is a fantastic companion to many hybrid learning tools that you might be used to using, particularly with the experiences you've been having as educators during the pandemic and some of the lockdowns that have happened around the world. So, a great companion to Teams, Google Meet, all these sorts of tools. But if you want to draw your learners' attention in really, really quickly, a great way of doing that is just by locking their screens. It may be that you're already still on a Teams call, and that's absolutely fine. But if you want to draw your attention, get learners' attention straight to you, it's really simple to just lock their screens by going up to the navigation bar here at the top and then going to the option lock. And as you'll see, when I click on lock, almost immediately, all of the learners' screens will then display the lock symbol like so. So straight away, I've got my learners' screens locked and their attention comes straight back to me at the front of the class, whether that's via a platform such as Teams or whether they're physically inside that classroom with you there straight away. To unlock a student screen, it's simply a case of going to unlock, and then they can carry on doing whatever it is you've asked them to then continue with. Another lovely way of using this tool is to sort of keep an eye on what learners are doing. And as you can see just here, yes, all the other learners are doing really well. They're focusing on their work, but this student has gone off task a bit and is looking at some things on Amazon. Now, clearly not an activity we want in the class. Now, what I can do at this point, rather than going to the lock button and locking everyone's screens, I can simply select this learner's screen. You can see that it's now just ticked that with a check mark here at the top. If I then go now to my lock screen like so, I can lock that learner's screen. Everyone else can carry on with their work. And I can now engage Gavin in a conversation about their off-task behaviour, so that Gavin can then go back, get off the inappropriate site and be getting on with the work that Gavin should be doing. Now, later on, I'll be talking about how we can actually have approved and disapproved and disallowed websites as part of our sort of filtering within Classroom.cloud. But for now, that's how you can lock all student screens, or on a more granular level, lock a student screen if you want to. Now, you can use this feature for lots of other purposes as well. Let's say that you know that Andy and Gavin and Rob have actually finished their first piece of work, and you want to have a conversation just with them. So what I can do is I can multiple select the screens. So I go on to Andy like so, and choose Rob as well. I can then go to lock, and that will lock all of those three, but the remainder of my class can be carrying on with what it is that I want them to be doing. And then when I want to unlock them and carry on, as I say, very simple thing to just go to unlock. That will unlock the screens, and then those students can carry on with the work that they're doing for you in your class. You can now see those screens coming back there like so. And that's how you can lock and unlock student screens within your class. As you can see here on my teacher dashboard, I can already see the names of my learners. Fantastic. Andy Hall, Gavin Emery, Rob Myers, so forth and so on. But that happens because the user profile that's logged on to any of the devices in the setup we have here has their names there. Classroom.cloud automatically pulls that information through, but not every setting has that kind of setup. It could be that you're in a primary or a K kind of setting, and it's laptop 01. Well, laptop 01 isn't very helpful when you know that Katie's using laptop 01 and you want to know which laptop she's on and see it on your screen in front of you. Now, in my classroom, I know that Gavin doesn't like to be called Gavin. He has a preferred name that isn't Gavin Emery. Now, it's on his profile. We, as a school, should really update that. But what I'm going to do now is, rather than try and get all the names from all of my learners in the classroom, and you could do that by going to the Get Student Name option here, and by selecting that, that would bring up the student name option on every screen, and you can see that starting to appear right now. If you wanted to get rid of that, you can just click on it again and it will remove the option from your student screens. As you can see it disappearing again now. But as I said, I'm only really interested in getting the preferred name from Gavin. So you can do that on a granular level, just like I showed you a few moments ago on how to lock the student screens on a granular level. So you can do the same thing with getting student names. So I will select Gavin like so. I then go to the Get Student Names options like so. And now Gavin has the option now to type his preferred name in. Gavin will type in his preferred name. He'll hit the OK button. And now you can see it's changed on the screen here automatically. And that is how you get student names if you want to help you identify which learner is using whichever device within your setting, wherever that is. And of course, it could be we're in a hybrid situation and your student is using a device from home. It might have, you know, Dave's laptop or whatever it is. And so you might prefer to have a different name there as well. So that's how you get student names, and you can do that, like I say, on a global level for all the students in your class, or you can do it on a granular level, as I've shown you just there. So whilst it's lovely to be able to see all of your learners' screens like this, and you can see them working and so forth and so on, sometimes you might want to actually sort of dive a bit deeper and see exactly what it is that they're doing on their screen. So if I just look at Rinier's screen here for a second, that's great. And I can use these options over here to, make the thumbnails bigger and all these things. But what I really want to do is actually get into Rinier's screen. So I can do that by simply double clicking. It'll open up, as you can see, a new tab inside your browser, and I can now see the work that Rinier is doing on their screen. I can see they're looking for some related images to drop into their piece of work. Now, there's a bunch of things I can do at this point. Let's say, for example, that I want to see this a bit bigger or a bit smaller. Okay, well, I can use these options on the toolbar here to make things larger. I can do things to make things smaller. But let's say that Rinier is actually starting to go a bit off task and is actually looking at something a little bit inappropriate. And Rinier is a student in my class who's got a bit of a history of being a bit, providing a few behaviour issues, shall we say. So what I'd like to do is sort of capture some evidence of this activity that Rinier is doing. So to do that, I can simply go to this option here where it says screenshot if I hover over it. If I click on there now, what it will do is it will take that screenshot, and now it gives me the option to then give it a file name. So I'll just call it Rinier behavior, let's say, and I can now just simply save it like so. So I've now got that evidence of Rinier doing something inappropriate. Let's flip the case scenario. Rinier has actually been in touch using the chat feature on classroom.cloud. Okay, we'll demonstrate the chat feature later on, not a problem, but Rinier wants some help with something. Now, I can be speaking to Rinier and talking to them using classroom.cloud, not a problem, but it might be that I actually want to take control so I can show them how to do something. To do that, just move over to the right-hand side here, and you've got three options here. Okay, the first option is remote control. And if I click remote control, I can now take control of Rinier's machine, and I can go on to here. I can actually engage. I can open a new tab in their browser. Let's say, there we go. Hopefully Rinier is going to stop moving their mouse and doing things for a second so that I can take control. Thank you, Rinier. Brilliant stuff. And I can now take them to a resource. I'm just going to go to Google, for example. You can see I've just typed in Google. Whatever you want to do to support your learner remotely, you can do so through using that remote control option there. And when you're done, simply go back to the remote control option there, click it, and that will stop your remote control of that particular student's device. Going back across here, once you've got remote control turned on, you can also do some other things to help you. It could be you're using a slightly different device. Sometimes you want to use keyboard combinations to do different things. For example, it might be that Rinier has left their machine, gone home, they're not in the room, but you want to actually shut down their machine. You want to log them off, all these different things. So this will, by pressing on here, will press the Windows key, and will enable me to do and perform other shortcuts and these sorts of things. Or alternatively, I can go to the option here and send Control Alt and Delete. You can see the Windows menu has just come up there following me pressing the Windows menu. And equally, now if I press Control Alt Delete, we'll see that I've got my Control Alt Delete option come up there as well. And obviously, I don't want to do anything like lock it or log the Rinier out or any of those sort of things. So I can just click onto Cancel, and that'll bring us straight back into where we want to be. But that is how you can view a student's screen. You can take control, you can provide support remotely, and all those different things in Classroom.cloud. Classroom.cloud is loaded with so many useful and helpful features for both you as the educator in the room, or not, if you're working in a hybrid setting, and for your learners too. One of my favourite features is the option in Classroom.cloud to have what we call the student toolbar. Now currently the student toolbar is turned off. To bring up the student toolbar is super easy. On your various icons across the top here, you'll see the one with the three little dots just here. It looks like a little waffle or burger, as you might know it as being called. And you'll notice a student toolbar when you hover over it because it says student toolbar. Now when you choose student toolbar, select it like so, you'll then see on your thumbnails an extra little toolbar appear at the top of all of your student screens. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to jump into Renier's screen again. And as we look at Renier's screen, what we can see is when they hover over the various icons that are there on the right hand side, what each of the things are. So the first one there, which has the little bar chart, sorry, line graph there with the arrow on it, that's for the lesson objective. Now I've set my lesson objectives up and I can show you in a moment how to do that, but that's a great reminder for your learners in the classroom of what it is they're actually trying to achieve, what they're learning about and what they're supposed to be working on as their outcomes for the lesson. The next icon across, which sort of looks like a USB stick, is exactly that. As I shared earlier, you can restrict USB access inside your class if you want to. The next icon across talks about what applications they have available to them to use. And again, you'll be learning later how to restrict or allow different applications. The same with websites. You can see the sort of World Wide Web icon there. And probably two of the most useful tools in the student toolbar on the right hand side there, you have the option there where a student can request a chat, again perfect for a hybrid learning setting, where a student can quietly just get in touch and say, hey Mr. Anderson, I need some help with this or that, or I don't understand this point, and so forth and so on. If they simply want your attention as well, what they can do is use the raise hand feature, the help request option there. And if I just ask Renier to just select the help request option, what happens when we get the help request option, I'll just, for them, they can send a quick message like that. Hi sir, I am stuck. And you can choose an alert underneath as well from the drop down. Urgent help, need help, so forth and so on. They hit OK. Their toolbar changes colour, which is a nice sort of quick and easy thing to see there. And what I'll also now see on my dashboard, if I come back in here, you can see the flashing hand like so. So to draw my attention to the fact that one of my learners needs a bit of support and help. So that's the student toolbar, and this is how students can request help. Let's have a little look at what this student wants some help with. Oh look, Renier saying, hi sir, I'm stuck. Brilliant. Now I can do a bunch of things here from this option. I could just clear it because Renier is a naughty student and they're always doing this 15 times a lesson. And it's just an attention-seeking strategy. When we can around that, do lots of things. Again, in your context, your class, you decide what you do with your learners. We can clear that one or clear all of them. I can jump straight into a chat with Renier, or I can choose to watch, like we saw a moment ago. Now we're going to dive into chat more later, but let's just jump into chats so we can see that quickly. And what I can now do is go into here and start a conversation with Renier. Hi, what's up? Type it, send it, and now I can have a conversation with that learner to try and find out what the problem is, so I can provide the support that they well need to progress with their work. There you go, student toolbar and the features inside it. In the previous video, you saw how a student can use the student toolbar to raise their hand and request a chat. But what if you want to start a chat with a learner in your hybrid classroom using Classroom.Cloud? How do you go about doing that? Well, earlier in the video, you learned about the navigation options down the left-hand side with these different options you can see me rolling over now. And you'll remember the option here enables you to bring up the section where you can start chats. Starting a chat with any of your learners is super easy. Let's say I want to talk to Renier and find out how they're getting on in the class. Well, I can simply select Renier like so. And once I've selected Renier, you can see the option Create Chat appears on the right hand side. So what I can do is simply hit Create Chat. And I can now drop Renier a line and say, how are you getting on with the classroom objectives for this lesson, question mark, and send that straight to Renier, and they can now get a chance to respond. That's a really nice way of sort of checking progress. And again, if you're working in a hybrid setting, you've got some learners in the room with you, some working down the corridor or remotely in another site within your setting, so forth and so on. It's a great way of having a conversation with the learner without disturbing the learning of others who may be surrounding you. Great news, Regnier thinks they're doing okay. Fantastic. When you finish the conversation, simply go to where it says end chat at the top just here. Don't hit end class, that will end the class, don't want to do that. But yeah, hit end chat, and that is how you invoke and start a chat with a student in your class, and how you can end it at the end using Classroom.cloud. As educators, we know that formative assessment is really important in taking the temperature of learning in the classroom. Sometimes learning goes off-piste and you want to ask a question about something that is not really on the lesson plan. Sometimes you know exactly the questions you want to be asking your learners in the classroom. Either which way, Classroom.cloud has you covered with our fantastic survey tool. To start working on surveys inside Classroom.cloud, the first thing you'll need to do is to navigate to the survey section using the icon on the left-hand side here. If the icon isn't enough for you, then obviously, as before, you can just expand this out and you can see the survey option here. But as you become more familiar with the platform, as I shared earlier, you'll know this is your survey option here. Now, as mentioned, these icons across here are standard, but when we go into the survey section, we get 4 new options that you can see me scrolling over here right now. Now, depending on your use case scenario, you might want to either go straight to Start Survey or go to your Manage section just here. Let's explore the Manage section first of all. If you go into Manage, like so, what I can do is I can go in and I can start adding some questions in. I know that I want to be asking questions about how many moons Jupiter has and so forth and so on. Okay, so you can see I've got that question in there already. If you want to add an extra question in, simply go on to Add and pop the question in. Let's call it bonus question just for expediency's sake. And to put the low stakes multiple choice option in there, it's just a case of putting in the various responses with a comma in between each of them. So let's say the potential answers here are 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5. I simply separate them with a comma and I hit save. You'll have seen in there as well, and let's pop in another bonus question. You'll have seen down the bottom here as well that there are some predefined responses to help you be a bit more efficient on some simple questions you might want to ask with some regularly, frequently used types of responses. So one could be yes or no, or yes, no, or maybe, yes, no, don't know, true or false. So you can choose those automatically to go in just by selecting them from that predefined list. Again, hit save, and that's now added in there as one of your bonus questions. Over time, this may get to be quite a long list and might not be relevant for future classes. So in a housekeeping kind of a way, if you've got a question that you don't want, let's say I don't want to keep this one here, select it and you can simply delete it. Or if you've noticed a mistake, you can go in and edit it, so forth and so on. So I'm just going to delete that one like so. And from here, I can now come out of here and I can now start my survey with my class. But you may have noticed as well, if I jump back into Manage just here, what I could do is actually select the question and go Start like that instead. That's another way of invoking that quick survey with your class. It could also be, as you would suspect, you can do these sort of things on a granular level as well. So it might be that I know that Tony and Shri and Simon have finished, so I could do a survey just with them by selecting them like so and then starting the survey. But I want to survey the whole class, so I'm just going to go to Start Survey, and I can either do a quick survey like so, I can create a brand new survey like so, or I can use a predefined survey here. So lots of ways in which you can invoke surveys with your learners. I'm just going to go to this one here, and from the list we'll see my questions. So our lessons on solar system, so I'm going to choose the how many moons does Jupiter have. I do it like so and I hit start, and what you'll see in a moment is that survey then appearing on my learners' screens. And as each learner responds to the question, so you'll see the different options coming up like so. really quickly, really easily. We can see who's getting the right answer, who's getting the wrong answer. And maybe you know, how many moons does Jupiter have? Well, the answer is 53. So I'm really pleased that a large proportion of my class are getting that question absolutely spot on. So well done to them. But it does highlight to me that I might need to reinforce that learning with my class, because there's a good sort of 40 or so % there who haven't actually got that answer correct. That is surveying. To finish a survey, simply go to cancel survey. But before we do that, just go to here and hit show and hide. So you can show and hide the responses on your learners' screens. Again, learning should be transparent, so this is a fantastic way about discussing the responses with the class. So why have some of you chosen the wrong answer? Who said 53? How do we know it's 53? Unpick that with your learners. And again, this is a great way, through showing the results on the screens of your learners, of having that conversation about their progress, their learning, so forth and so on. So when you're done with all of this, I'm just going to hide that away so it's not on their screens anymore. And I simply go to cancel survey, and that removes that, and my class can then continue with the work that they're doing. We talked a little bit earlier in these videos about using the surveying tool for assessment for learning, for formative feedback for you as the teacher, to get a read on where learners are at in their progress inside your lesson. But sometimes you want to do a bit of cold calling, you might want to do a bit of sort of pose, pause, pounce, bounce, those kinds of sort of pedagogically sound approaches to working with your learners. But one of the things I've always found in my career is if you choose a student, sometimes it's important to do cold calling and do it that way, but it's actually quite nice to sometimes, if you don't want to ask a particular learner, to do that in a random kind of a way. So you can do that inside Classroom.Cloud. If you simply go up to the question mark option just here on the toolbar, click onto it, you'll notice when you do it, then you can choose the number of students as well, and do student sounds and teacher console sounds. You can have that turned on and off if you don't want to have them there, but we'll leave them on for the purpose of this video. I'm just going to choose one student. You can either sort of change that manually by clicking, deleting and changing it, or you can use the option here to sort of change the number if you want to. I'm just going to choose one student. I hit start and you'll then see it working. And there we go, it's chosen Gav there to answer the question. And you might be able to see as well, you have been chosen, a little message appears on their screen as well. So another little useful tool to support a bit of engagement and to remove that, oh, you always pick me, sort of challenge that you might get from some of your learners inside your classroom. So there you go, that's how you can use the random select tool in Classroom.Cloud. As I've shared a number of times in this session, there are loads of features in Classroom.Cloud that are really useful and helpful in multiple settings. One of the features that we really love here at NetSupport about Classroom.Cloud is the ability to give students rewards for positive behaviours, and we can do that through our rewards system. Now, earlier in the video you learned about the option to collect student names, lock, unlock screens, and just adjacent to that you have the option rewards. By clicking onto rewards, what you can do is you can give students rewards, you can remove rewards, and you can clear rewards. Now, likely within your setting you'll have some sort of rewards, discipline, sanctions sort of policy for behaviour within your setting. And it might be that you have a house point system, let's say. Now you can support that in your own classroom however you want to, and it's likely you'll have something set up for that. But Classroom.Cloud can help you with that. In my classroom, for example, we have a house point system, and I want to reward my students in my class and within my faculty when they show positive behaviours. So, for example, in my classroom right now, I am saying to my students, for every 5 minutes you stay on task, I'll give you a reward, and if you hit 5 rewards, you'll get a house point. It could be that you set up with them other positive actions. If you provide peer support, you'll get a reward. If you answer a question correctly, whatever it is that you want to have and do within your setting, Classroom.Cloud can support that through the rewards function that I'm demonstrating to you here. So how do you go about giving rewards, removing rewards, and how can you do that on a granular level? Because it might be, like I say, one student's done something in particular that you want to reward them for. Well, let's have a little explore first of all in how we can give a reward to the whole class. It's very simple. Make sure you have none of your students selected, and you'll know if you have, because when you have a student selected, as you can see here with Shri, the check mark appears here in the top left-hand corner. So make sure none of them are checked. Simply go to the rewards section here at the top and choose Give Reward. And when you do that, you'll then see the little star icon appear in the top right-hand corner in your thumbnail view and the number of rewards that a student has gathered. Now, let's say now, for example, Andy has been providing some peer support and I want to give Andy an additional reward. I simply select Andy like so, and I go to rewards and I go again, give reward. But this time, different to before, you can see that Andy's reward number has gone up, so he now has 2, but Gav and everyone else in the class still only have 1. Remember to uncheck if you want to give rewards to the whole class. Again, 5 more minutes have passed. Well done, you're all still on task. Here's an extra reward. We're building them up, we're building them up. But I've noticed that Renier has gone off task again. So what I can do is simply go to Renier, select Renier, and now I'm going to remove a reward from Renier like so. And you'll see that the rest of the class's total tally is still the same. Renier's has gone down, back down to 1 like so. And remembering again, uncheck the box so that when you're ready to give the class another reward for their 5 more minutes of being on task, you can do that. The truth is, there are many ways in which you can use the rewards feature in Classroom.Cloud to support positive actions and behaviour in your setting. The trick is making sure you work on that and discuss that with your learners so that it actually becomes a positive reinforcement that enables great behaviours for learning within your setting. During the videos you've been watching so far on Classroom.Cloud, we've been working through these options across the top, such as getting the student names, locking, unlocking, giving rewards, all the rest of it. However, an option I want to share with you now is around the messaging feature. Now, you know that we can use the chat feature to talk one-to-one with learners in the classroom to support them with their activities. They can request a chat, request help, all these different things. But sometimes you want to send a message to your entire class. It could be, you've got 5 minutes left on this activity. Please make sure that you write your homework in your homework diary, whatever it is you want to send to the whole class. And this is where the message feature comes in and is really helpful. So to do that sort of global message for every learner in your setting and in your class, simply go to message, click onto the option you have just here. You type the message you want. So remember to write your homework into your planner, whatever the messages you want to send. You can make it time out after however long you want it to be. It could be 10 seconds. You can increase that using the options up and down here as well if you want to. Then just simply hit the send button like so. That'll then send that message onto all of their screens, and hopefully you can see that appearing just in the little thumbnail view here on their screens. And then after the time that you've shared it to be present for, the message will then disappear, and hopefully your learners will have written their homework into their planners or have done whatever it is that you've requested them to do, or just be mindful they only have 5 minutes left on their activity, so forth and so on. And that is how you send a message to your class across all of your learners. Now, as before, remember, we can do lots of things on a granular level in Classroom.Cloud as well. So let's say I only want to message Gav and Andy. I can simply go to the message function here, send the message, whatever the message is, choose my timeout, so I'll just choose 10 seconds this time, send the message like so, and this time we'll just see that message appear on just their 2 screens. So we can see it appearing here and here, but we can't see it on the other screens because it's just one of those students I've selected for that message to appear to. The next feature to explore in Classroom.Cloud and our standard toolbar across the top here is the one around the student desktop. Now, if you choose the student desktop option here, there are 2 options that then appear: show desktop and clear desktop. Now, they might sound similar, but they are different. There are occasions where you might want to just clear everything that's on a student's screen. Perhaps so you can grab their attention, perhaps so you can do a quick pop quiz with your students. Now, this is different to locking their screens, okay? Similar kind of effect and impact, but it is slightly different. So if I want to show just the desktop of all of my learners, remove everything that's in front of them, super quick and easy just to click Show Desktop. Now, there are times as well where you might want to actually close down and clear everything. Close down all of the applications that are on student screens. That could be because it's the end of the lesson, the students have not logged off, or you want to get the class ready for your next class. You don't actually have individual logons using the setup you've got in your school or your setting. And this is where the sort of the flexible nature of Classroom.Cloud really does come into its fore, because you can use it to support you in whatever your context. So on top of that, you can do, as with many of the things that I've been sharing with you in these videos, you can do these sort of things on a granular fashion as well. So if I wanted to just show the desktop on one machine, let's say I want to do that on Simon Churchill's machine here, I can simply select Simon and go Show Desktop, and that will then just show the desktop of Simon like so. And in a moment we'll see, there we go, boom, Simon's desktop is up, but none of the other students' desktops in the class are showing. That you can still see they've still got their same pages up, they're still doing the same work. Let's just uncheck Simon for a second. I'm now going to go to Show Desktop again, and what that will do is now do that for the entire class, and you can now see that all of the desktops are now appearing, and I'm sure that Reniers will do that as well in just a second as well. The other option, as I said, is the Clear Desktop option as well. And as I say, this is a slightly different approach and far more wide-ranging. Okay, be careful if you do this, obviously, because if students are working, haven't saved their work, and you choose to close all the applications across your class, then obviously that's not an ideal situation. You don't really want to do that if they haven't saved their work, so forth and so on. So if you are going to choose the option to close all applications at your selected students, then be sure that that's really what you want to do. So when you're ready, you would simply hit confirm. My class are going to continue, so I'm not going to hit confirm, I was going to hit cancel. But that option of confirming there would close down all of those things on all of those student devices. And that is how you can either show the desktop or close applications at a student's device. Working across the toolbar, we've reached this section now here where we have the watch option. Now we've already learned that we can double click onto any of our icons in our thumbnail view here to view a student's screen. So I can double click on Andy, for example, and view it that way. However, the watch option allows us to do that in a less obtrusive way. We can simply select the option and go to watch, and it brings that student up. So there's Andy, for example. I can go across and maybe choose Tony instead. Is he actually watching this YouTube video? So click on Tony, go to watch. It brings up Tony. Yes, it is something to do with their working class. Happy days, brilliant stuff. So that's the watch feature in Classroom.Cloud. So I've said a few times in these videos that Classroom.Cloud is super useful and really flexible for lots of different learning environments, whether that's in class with every learner or in a hybrid setting where your learners may be in different locations. When you are working with your class, one of the things you may often want to do is to share your screen. It may well be that you want to demonstrate something, run through a presentation, share a resource, so forth and so on. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to use this feature here, which is Share Screen. Now you can share your screen in a variety of ways with flexibility built in to the platform, which is super useful for you as the teacher running the session with your learners. When you click the Share Screen option, you'll be presented with a variety of options. Do you want to share your screen full screen at the students? Do you want to share it in a window at your students? And do you want to actually speak to them or mute them? So if you want to speak to them, obviously have the microphone unmuted, and you can do that by just simply clicking on it like so. I'm going to actually have mine muted, and I want mine to be shared full screen at my students. Once you've made the choices here, simply go to Next. And as you may have seen on my screen, I've got a PowerPoint presentation about the solar system that I'm ready to now run and share with my learners. So am I looking to share my entire screen? No, I'm not. Am I looking to share a window? No, I'm not. But the important thing here is that you may want to. So if you want to share your entire screen, let's say you've got a PowerPoint presentation loaded up actually in PowerPoint. That could be in a window, it could be one where you have to choose entire screen because you're on a desktop or a dual screen setup, all those different things. Make the choice which is relevant to you. But I'm using Chrome browser and my presentation is open in a Chrome tab. So in order for that to work, I'll simply choose Chrome tab. I select the option that I want to, the tab that I want to be sharing with my class. So there's the solar system. We get a little preview of it over here. That's exactly what I want. And if there's any audio in that tab as well, let's say we're trying to show a video, for example, where the audio is important, then you may want to have that ticked there as well. When you're ready to share that to your learners, simply hit the option Share. Now what that will do, and you can see it's kicked me straight across into my presentation here, but if I jump back into our Classroom.Cloud tab here, we can see it's popped a little display screen, splash screen, onto all of my learners' screens, which basically indicates to them that I'm wanting to share something onto their screen. In order for them to start that working on their screen, all they need to do is simply hit the option Start, which is the little green icon you can see just under the Classroom.Cloud logo. So as you can see, Simon has thankfully opened that up on their display. We can say that Andy's done the same. And what we'll see as we progress with the conversation is that the rest of the class will join me in my presentation. So what I can now do, once I'm sure that my class can all see the thing that I'm sharing with them, I can start my presentation about the solar system, the PowerPoint presentation that I want to run with my class. We can see Shree's joined us now, Tony has, and I'm sure Rob will any moment too. There we go, there's Rob as well. So I could now jump into my presentation. I can say, you know, here's the sun, so forth and so on. Yeah, there's Earth and all the rest of it. Okay, so I deliver my presentation. I can do it like this, or I could run it full screen if I wanted to, so forth and so on. And then when I'm finished, all I need to do as teacher is simply hit the stop sharing button. So I deliver my little presentation to the class. I hit stop sharing. That will stop that. I jump back into Classroom.Cloud and you'll notice that the screen has changed on all of these student devices as well, and there as well. So let's just jump into Gav's screen, for example, to have a look at what that looks like. And as you can see, there's an explanation there for you. The teacher has stopped sharing their screen. Please close this browser window. And all the learner has to do now, and I can just do that via remote control, is just hit close like so. That will close that, and the student can then continue with the work that they were doing. And that is how you use the share screen feature in Classroom.Cloud. In this section, we're going to look at two features. The first one is this section here right at the very end where it says refresh. And I'm jumping to that section to share that, linking into another option just over here, which is the change view option, to talk about the visible area just here. The first option, refresh, is really quite useful actually. What it does is it just simply refreshes your connections to your learners' devices. Now, we all know the internet is a fantastic thing, but sometimes lag can get in the way, we can get bottlenecks and all sorts of things. So if you notice that your thumbnails aren't refreshing quite as quickly as you might like, simply tapping the refresh button will do that and just bring up and reconnect back to those student devices, so you're making sure that you're seeing the latest view from their devices. But sometimes the view that you want to see isn't actually the thumbnails, and so what we've got built into Classroom.Cloud is this change view option over here, which is really quite useful for a number of reasons, which we'll explore right now. If I go to change view, what we can see here is a nice view here where we don't see the thumbnails, Okay, but we can see a bunch of other things. Okay, so we can see the icons across the bottom here, whether the screens are locked, unlocked, so forth and so on, whether they're connected, so forth and so on. A really nice simple view to see who your class is. Now, if you've got a particularly large class, this view is really nice to enable you to see really clearly what's going on with each of your individual students in your class. If you click on the change view option again, it will rotate through into another option as well. And I really love this option as well, because not only can you see all the names of your students, you can see their heartbeats, their rewards, you can see their status icons, whether they've got any hands raised, whether they've completed a survey, whether the screens are locked, those sorts of things. We can also see information here around any of the sort of the device monitoring, filtering, so forth and so on. So we can see that they're connected, how they're connected, whether that's on Wi-Fi, whether that's on a connection. And we can see they're definitely connected in this side over here. So a really useful view again for you to get information about your class. Press the button again and that rotates it right back round, full circle, back to your thumbnail view. So again, you have your thumbnail view here, you have your informative view here, you have your more detailed view here. Press it again and you're back to square one with your thumbnail view. And that is how you can both refresh your connections to your learners so you get the latest visible information on those thumbnails, and then how we can use a change view option to view different bits of information about your learners in your class at any given time. Remember how we were able to granularly select different students for different purposes, for giving rewards or for doing other things? You know, that's a really lovely feature to be able to do that. But what if you've got some consistent groups that you need to regularly select for reasons linked to and relating to the work that you're doing? Well, there's a feature inside Classroom.Cloud called Groups, and it's so useful. To create a group in Classroom.Cloud, simply go to the Groups option just here, just below where it says End Class. And again, be careful, don't hit End Class. Just click onto where it says Groups, and you'll be presented straight away with the option to add a group. So to add a group, we simply go to Create a Group and click on Add Group. And then from your class, choose the students that you wish to be part of that group. So really useful. Simply just click onto those students you want to be in that group. And let's say these are students who are going to do an extended project. So extended project group, giving it the name just next to where it says group name here at the top. And I'll go create group. I want to create another group now to join, and you'll notice that the view is slightly different now within the group section in Classroom.Cloud. That add group option has disappeared there. But what you will notice, alongside your standard icons across here, you now have three different icons which are related to the activities of creating and editing and managing your groups. To add a new group, you simply go to Add Group. If you want to edit a group you've already made, simply select it and then go to the Edit Group option. Or if you wanted to, for whatever reason, remove that group, you simply go to Remove Group and remove it. But I don't want to do that. I want to create another group for students who need some extra support. So I'm going to go to Add Group, and this time I'm going to add Shri and Tony to the support group. I go to Create, and I've now got two groups. Now, how is that helpful? Well, if I jump back now by hitting the back option just here, alongside the All option that I have here inside Classroom.Cloud, where I can see all of my learners, you'll now see I've got two new tabs just adjacent to that. Extended Project Group. And when I click on that, we can see the students in my Extended Project Group. If I go to Support Group, I can see those students who require that extra little bit of support. That's one great way that you can use as a shortcut to facilitate you seeing those students in a heartbeat. Now, you know, I've only got these few students in this class, but if you've got 30 students in your class, having this to filter it down and refine the view so that you can still have a nice large icon if you want to, makes it super useful to really dig deeper and support your students at whatever level that you need to support them with. And so that is how we use the Groups feature in Classroom.Cloud. In this video, we're going to now explore the app monitoring feature in Classroom.cloud. Now, to get into the app monitoring feature, simply go to app monitoring on the left-hand side just here. And once you're in, you can see the various apps that your class are using. Now, I can see that my class are all currently using Chrome, but the tools that they have access to in my class currently are completely unrestricted. You'll see the app monitoring icons related to the activity for app monitoring just here. We have unrestricted, approved only, block restricted, and manage. So it's currently unrestricted, and if I go into manage, we can see I don't actually have any approved or restricted apps at all, but there are plenty of cases and scenarios where you'd want your learners to only have access to certain tools. Equally, you might want them to only have access to certain websites, and we'll explore how to approve and restrict websites later on in the video. But to add tools to your approved or restricted list is super easy. So to do that, we can simply go to the plus button on approved or the plus button on restricted, depending on whether you want to add or remove these. So if I'm going to go to here, I'll choose the plus button and I get two options presented to me straight away. Store applications currently linked through to those applications which are on the Windows Store. So we can scroll through there and we can find the app that we want to actually open up. So it could be like we want to have Word, for example, Word Mobile, hit add, and we can add that to our approved list. Alternatively, if you wanted to use sort of the Word desktop app, we can simply go onto the plus button, go to desktop application and simply type word.exe and save that. And if I was to then go up to the option just here and choose approved only, the tools that the learners in my class could only use would be Word or Word Mobile. Okay, and if you want to restrict certain tools, let's say you want them to do some writing and you only want them to not be able to do any research or anything like that, what I could do, for example, then is go to here, repeat the process, this time desktop application, and choose chrome.exe like so and save it. So once you've set up the apps that you want to include in here, it's then simply a case of making sure that we either have it unrestricted, approved only, or block those restricted ones. Okay, and at any point in time, if you want to change any of those options within there, we simply hit the manage button to go back into the screen here. If you click manage again, you'll see that those options disappear. Click on manage again, the options reappear. And simply what happens is, if we only allow these certain apps, then what happens is the app then gets blocked and a message will come up on the learner's screen to say that that tool is not allowed. This also links into the student toolbar. We've seen the student toolbar before, and when we hovered over those icons, we saw it showed us what the allowed apps and allowed and restricted apps were, and so forth and so on. Now that I've added these in, if a student was to hover over those, they would then see which tools they were allowed to use and which were disallowed, and so forth and so on. So again, super simple to set up, super simple to implement, and whenever you're ready to unrestrict, you can go back to unrestricted or have it however you want to have it. So that is how you can not only just monitor the apps and tools that are being used by your learners in your classroom, but how you can set up your approved and restricted lists for your class inside Classroom.cloud. Additional to all of that, if you wanted to remove any of these, or even perhaps launch any of these particular tools, that's super easy as well. So we can do that by simply clicking onto the thing that we want to work with, let's say Word. And then when we actually select the tool, we can then go across to the right, and we can choose to launch that onto a learner's device. Or if we want to just delete that from our approved list, simply hit delete, and that will remove it like so. So lots of options available inside app monitoring. And next we'll explore the similar processes within web monitoring in Classroom.cloud. In a similar way to how we just restricted and approved some of the apps via the app monitoring section here in Classroom.cloud, we can do a similar thing with our web monitoring option as well. So to do that, just like we did with app monitoring, go to where it says web monitoring on the left hand side. And the first thing we notice when we're in this section probably is we can see really clearly the different websites that learners are using at any given time. Now, I'm very pleased that my learners are all using approved websites at the moment, but it might be, for example, you want to restrict the option to use YouTube in your settings. So just like we saw in the web monitoring, in the app monitoring feature, we had those icons on the right hand side. So we have similar icons here, but restricting things to do with things that your learners can do on the World Wide Web. So you can have unrestricted access, and obviously that's not completely unrestricted because you will have firewalls and other protections in place for your learners. That's unrestricted within the realms of that setup you'll have external to Classroom.cloud. However, if you want to unrestrict access to those sites that students might want to be using for their research or their activities, then have it unrestricted. If you only want to allow certain approved sites, let's say you're looking particularly at the NASA website and you only want your learners to access the NASA site, then you can do that through the approved lists. You can block certain things. You can also block all. So if you want to stop all of your learners being able to use the internet for a particular period of time, then you can block all access using the block all feature just by clicking on it very, very easily. Just like in the app monitoring section, now if you want to set up your approved and restricted lists, is again a simple case of going into the manage section. And just like you did with the app monitoring, simply go to the plus sign and just type in the URLs that you want to allow or restrict, depending on which side you're filling in. So let's say I'm very happy for my learners to be accessing the NASA website, so nasa.gov. I can just then hit save. I want to add in Quizlet.com. I can press enter as a quicker way of doing that rather than clicking on save as well. And you can carry on populating your list like so. But let's say in your school, you want to restrict, or in your class today, you want to restrict YouTube. So Tony's going to be a bit upset here. But if I go to restricted over here, I can put in YouTube.com, press the return key. That's now restricted. Now Tony can still use YouTube because I haven't actually chosen to block restricted sites and so forth and so on. So again, running through these options, we can unrestrict. So any of the options you put into approved or restricted don't come into play at all. We can allow it so only approved sites can be used. We can also block those restricted ones. We can block everything. And if you want to manage any of this, we can simply go to manage and add and or remove any of the options that are here. Now, another great feature within here, just like we saw within the app monitoring section, is if we want to actually launch a particular site or address directly onto a student's machine, we can do that very simply by going to the site we want to launch, selecting it like so, and then going to launch. Equally, if you want to remove it from the list, if your list is becoming too long and unwieldy, or it's no longer appropriate for you to have that particular site as an approved site, then you can simply go to delete and that will remove it from the list like so. And similarly, just like we saw with the app monitoring section, this links directly into things like the student toolbar, so they can see the approved sites that they're allowed to use. They can get into it through that. It's lots of lovely little things tied into all of this. So that is how we get into web monitoring. We can see the sites that your learners are using. It's super useful. And linking to all this as well, if you want to apply these things on a granular level, it might be you want to go into some of your groups, for example. You can work on that and do that sort of thing if you want to as well. There are lots of options available to us. And if you've got, I'm just going to allow that for a second. If you want to sort of bring these things and quickly add them to an approved and restricted list based upon what your students are using, and then it's a simple case of just right-clicking on the tool that you want and go add to approved list. We know that YouTube, if we want to restrict it, so add to restricted list. It's put in a slightly different domain there for that. So you can do that as an alternative way of adding things into your approved and restricted lists as you see fit for your particular context, for your class on that particular day, or however it is that you want to do those things as well. So that's how you use the web monitoring feature inside Classroom.cloud. So in this section, we're going to have a look at the quick launch feature. Now, in our previous sections, we were looking at the app monitoring feature and the web monitoring feature, and you saw in there that you can launch things directly from within there. But sometimes you want to actually have a list, or sometimes you might find a site during the course of a lesson or a resource that students have found you want to share with everybody and launch that really, really quickly. And so it might not be appropriate to be bringing those things and putting those things into the web monitoring or app monitoring feature. And so in the way in which Classroom.Cloud is super flexible for lots of a wide variety of settings, we have this quick launch feature built in as standard on the main toolbar here. It's the rocket icon just here that you can see me hovering over now. So to quick launch something, okay, and that could be an app or it could be a website, a URL, simply click on quick launch and the quick launch section appears. And all you need to do very quickly is just go to URL and type it in. So let's say, for argument's sake, it is just Google. So I'll just put in google.com. And when I hit launch URL, that will just open that straight away on all of my learners' devices, like so. So we can now see Google just coming up onto the different machines that are inside my class. Happy days. What you can also do, if you want to, you can pre-populate some of these things. So if you do know that you want to go to a certain number of sites during the course of your lesson, but don't want to add them to the restricted or approved lists, then what you can do is simply, like before, go to the plus button just here, type in whatever it is you want your learners to go to. So it could be, for example, Classroom.Cloud, just save it, so forth and so on. And just like you did previously in the app monitoring or the web monitoring section, simply go to the option and then click launch, and it will launch it on your learners' devices. Equally, in the quick launch section, it's not just about the URLs. So, for example, if you wanted to sort of support your learners getting into a particular tool really, really quickly, you can simply switch from being a URL to being an app. So let's say you really want your learners to be able to quickly get into Word or whatever it is, simply type the name, the file name of the tool that you want them to use, and you can either launch the app like so, or if you wanted to add it to your apps list, go over here. Like before, you had the store application option to go into as well, just as we have in the app monitoring section. Or we can go to desktop application and we can paste it into there and we can save it. So there's a variety of ways in which we can give access to apps, websites, so forth and so on, really quickly, really simply here inside Classroom.Cloud. In this section, we're going to explore the device control feature here in Classroom.Cloud. Now, as you can see on the display in front of us right now, there are three key things that we can actually allow or restrict inside Classroom.Cloud. They are the USB ports, they're the webcams, and the audio. Now, currently, everything is on for everybody. This is another place in which things like your groups can be really helpful as well, because it might be that you have some students within your class that present behaviour issues, let's say. So for those students, and let's say it's those students in our support group, we want to actually select those. And using the options that we have here, we can block things like USBs, we can block the webcams, and we can block their audio. And so it's a real nice quick way when you've got a large group of students inside your class of filtering them far more quickly and easily. If I go back to the All tab now, you'll see that we're just now allowing and restricting certain things for different people, so forth and so on. So to allow things, the simple thing again is just to go to whichever students you want to allow things to happen with or not, and choose allow, block, or allow or block, or allow or block on each of those different things that you're exploring there around your USB ports, around the webcam use in your class, and the audio. And that is how you use device control in Classroom.Cloud. Another lovely feature in Classroom.Cloud is its extra little bits you can do to make you that bit more productive. And so it'd be remiss of me to create this video without sharing some of those little things with you. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the sort of sub-context menus that you can access and the things that can do for you if you choose to use the right click button on your mouse when you're working in Classroom.Cloud. So for example, if I choose Simon Churchill here, for example, if I right click onto Simon, we can see, rather than having to sort of choose him and then go to different options, we've got a whole bunch of super useful things here. So I can lock him, unlock, I can do the message to him, I can chat, I can watch, I can give, remove rewards, clear their rewards. And there's an option here at the bottom called remove, and we'll talk about remove in just a moment. But these sub-context menus appear in lots of places. You'll have seen one of them already inside the web monitoring feature here, where I can right click and sort of add those to the approved and restricted lists and things like that. Equally, we can do similar things here. We can cut, we can copy, we can paste, we can do so all sorts of things. We can choose to do similar things that we saw on the main thumbnails view as well if we go on to this section here in the name section. Lots of things. So please do explore these extended functionalities inside Classroom.Cloud. You'll be surprised about how those things can really speed up your efficiency and productivity whilst using Classroom.Cloud. So you'll have seen me mention before in Classroom.Cloud that you can remove a student from your class. Now that could be for a whole variety of reasons, and should you wish to do that, that is entirely up to you. There are two main ways in which you can do that, but please remember that if you do this, then the next time you run this class, that student will bring themselves right back through because they're part of your class. If you need to have a student removed for a more permanent reason, maybe they've left the school or for whatever reason, then to do that, you'll need to speak to your technical team who can provide some support in how to do that. But if you need to remove a student for whatever reason inside Classroom.Cloud, as I said, there are two ways you can do that. The one way you'll have seen a moment ago, you can simply right click on that student and go to where it says remove, just down the bottom there, or alternatively, select the student you wish to remove, and then you can go to the remove option just up here in the top right hand corner, and that is how you remove a student in Classroom.Cloud. The final thing that we'd like to share with you in these series of videos on Classroom.Cloud and using it as an educator and teacher is to how you can end your class. Ending your class, I mean, I've mentioned it a few times and warned you not to press it by mistake. To end your class, though, is super easy. To do so, simply go to the top right hand corner up here, choose End Class. And once you've done that, you'll get this sort of challenge. Are you sure you want to end this class? And so simply hit the confirm button like so, and that will log you out of Classroom.Cloud, and it'll bring you back into your sign-in screen, and that is how you end the class in Classroom.Cloud. So we hope you found these videos really useful. We do love Classroom.Cloud here at NetSupport, our easy breezy low cost solution, classroom management solution to help educators manage their classes in lots of different scenarios. And I hope you've sort of seen that through the ways in which we've been sharing and the ways in which you can use Classroom.Cloud to support teaching and learning wherever your learners are in these series of videos. To learn more about Classroom.Cloud, simply visit Classroom.Cloud.